this Times story on Kavanaugh tells you so much about the modern left, the Democratic Party, the Democrat media complex, and what they're thinking in 2020. The timing of this is very interesting because this story, this totally botched, failed hit job by the New York Times on Brett Kavanaugh, ties in very nicely with a Peggy Noonan column that came out a few days ago. And the Peggy Noonan column was titled, "Everyone Knows the Truth About Politics." It was based on the 10 Rules for Life, not Jordan Peterson, but James Burnham's 10 Rules for Life. James Burnham was a political philosopher. He was a former leftist. He became a conservative, and then he helped found National Review. You know, he was a real hardcore leftist. He had a personal correspondence with Leon Trotsky, and then he becomes the central figure in the post-war conservative movement. He had 10 laws, 10 rules for life. He could have been a bestseller if he lived today. The first law that he put out is everybody knows everything. And what this means, how this applies today, is the idea that politicians aren't fooling anybody, that you can't actually conceal that much from the people. So the things that candidates and prognosticators and political operatives think are really closely held secrets are not. People just know. They get it. You see the politician, you ain't hiding anything. And a lot of my left-wing friends don't understand this. They just repeat the same tired talking points that the left is always regurgitating about Donald Trump. They repeat them to me as though we'd never thought of that. It had never occurred to anyone. One of my leftist friends, you know, I'm here in New York for a couple days. I was seeing every one of my friends is a liberal in New York. One of them comes up to me, he says yesterday, "Michael, it's just unfathomable that a Christian could ever support Donald Trump. Donald Trump doesn't have family values." Like this has never occurred to me before. So, you got me. I didn't realize Trump's been married multiple times. Okay, I don't support him anymore, right? Like that's never occurred to me. By the way, just on the point, Donald Trump, in a certain sense, really does have family values. He likes families so much that he's started 3 of them, likes marriage so much he's done it 3 separate times. Nevertheless, the point is well taken. President Trump has not led a particularly upright life when it comes to sex and love and marriage. Okay, that's fine. But the funny thing about the talking point is not that. The funny thing is the left thinks, yeah, nobody's thought about this. The conservatives don't get this. We know this. We know it. We know that President Trump, who has bragged about laying down with ladies who aren't his wife, has laid down with ladies who aren't his wife. We know that. Everybody knows it. That stuff is baked into the calculus of support for President Trump. Why do Christians support Trump? Not because of his marriage habits, but because, generally speaking, he is better than the alternative. Much better than the alternative. Incredibly better than the alternative. That's why. It's very simple. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows everything about Donald Trump especially. But what occurred to me with this Kavanaugh hit, with the New York Times trying to dredge up these same tired, lame lies about Brett Kavanaugh, it occurred to me that there is a corollary to Burnham's law that everybody knows everything, which is that nobody knows anything. How can those two things be true at the same time? Because everybody does know everything. But nobody ever seems to remember that everybody knows everything. And so, in another sense, nobody knows anything. The left is the great example here. The left has been lobbing 3 attacks, and really only 3 attacks, since 2016. And they're lobbing them again and again and again like it's Groundhog Day, over and over and over. Since 2016, the left has hurled 3 attacks on Donald Trump, on Trump's associates, and on Trump's supporters. Those attacks are that we are racists, or rapists, or traitors. It's one of the 3. And when it gets to Trump himself, they say he's all 3. He's a rapist. I got some unfounded allegations from someone somewhere. That's all they ever seem to do these days. He's a racist, even though he's condemned racism a zillion times. Doesn't matter. They call him a racist. Everybody knows Trump's a racist. That's what they said all over the Democratic debate a few nights ago. And he's a traitor. He's a stooge of Moscow. He's working for Vladimir Putin. He's selling out his country for golf courses or something. I don't know. And the more this is disproved, the more the Mueller report comes out, shows Trump never had any collusion, never had any criminal conspiracy with Russia. Nothing even resembling that. Doesn't matter. They dredge it up again and again and again like Groundhog Day. Right now, second verse, same as the first with Brett Kavanaugh. They called him a rapist back when he was up for the Supreme Court. Completely baseless allegations, no corroboration whatsoever, constantly changing storylines, a ton of evidence to the contrary. Didn't matter. They went forward with it. They pushed it again and again. They said he almost raped a girl, that he whipped out little Brett Jr. at a party freshman year, that he was harassing girls. One very prominent Democratic lawyer, Michael Avenatti, claimed that Brett Kavanaugh was part of a gang rape cabal in Georgetown that would go and find these poor women and hold them down and do all sorts of crazy things. Obviously, no evidence for any of that, and a number of them were proven liars, including the most famous one, Christine Blasey Ford. So what are they doing now after this completely blows up in their face, stymies their attempts to retake the Senate in 2018, totally fires up Republicans? What do they do now? The same freaking thing again. And they're doing it again, not because they believe the allegations are true. They don't. Nobody believes that Brett Kavanaugh is a rapist, rather. Nobody. Now, not one person in this country seriously believes it, who's hurling these allegations. But they're doing it because they think they can fool the American people. They learn nothing. They are doing it on the left because they think they're so much cleverer than everybody else. The trouble is everyone knows. Everyone knows this is BS, except for them. They know it's BS too, but they don't know that everybody knows that it's BS. Here is the attack. New York Times. New York Times Opinion tweets out. Get ready for this. Quote, "Having a penis thrust in your face at a drunken dorm party may seem like harmless fun, but when Brett Kavanaugh did it to her," Debbie Ramirez says, "it confirmed that she didn't belong at Yale in the first place." So I'd just like to rewind a little bit to get into the premise here of the New York Times tweet. Apparently, according to the New York Times, having a penis thrust into your face is harmless fun. There are a lot of things that implies, a lot of roads you could take that observation down from the New York Times, a lot of psychology of the Times editors that is really bubbling to the surface in this tweet. I'm not going to touch it. Not going to touch it, pun intended. But that was the first allegation. They're saying Brett Kavanaugh whipped out little Brett Jr. at a party, and it ruined this girl's Yale career. Now, if you look for that tweet right now, you're not going to find it. Why? Because the New York Times repeated a refrain that they've had to repeat, I don't know, like every day in the last few weeks. They sent out another tweet, quote, "We deleted a previous tweet regarding this article. It was offensive and we apologize." Not only was it offensive, by the way, and it was offensive to those who don't think having that thrust into your face is harmless fun, but it's inaccurate. There's no evidence that any of this happened. If you enjoyed that video, honestly, even if you didn't enjoy that video, please hit the like button so that the rest of the YouTubes knows that our content is the best content out there.